All right, guys, welcome. We have another episode of Coffee with Coach Patrick. Today, I'm joined by two Chena alumni, Nicolas Duke and Chris Paproski. How you guys doing today?
Doing well. As far as everything's going on with the world right now, it's okay.
It's all right. Chris, doing good?
Yeah, man. Nice to see two familiar faces for sure. Wish it was in
Yeah,
person now.
Yeah.
absolutely. Well, hopefully, we'll get to do that sooner rather than later. So I was wondering, guys, like how are you doing? I'll start with you, Chris. I guess how are you doing with everything with the shutdown and just where we are with everything in life? Everything being disrupted. Are you well? How are you doing? How's your family doing? Is everybody healthy?
Yeah, man. Everyone's healthy so far. It's crazy times, especially with my mom being a frontline health worker, so it's a little bit more careful over here, washing hands, disinfecting things when I'm leaving and coming back. But all in all, everyone's healthy. It's been exciting to come home. Just got back a week ago from Calgary, so it's been really nice.
So I guess you got to self quarantine a little bit now that just because you made the trip, right? Did you drive or fly?
I drove. My dad came up to get me, but I actually self quarantined before I left in Calgary, so that when I came here, I just didn't want to put my parents at risk
Mhm.
coming to them, and then I also didn't want to have to quarantine while it's 19 degrees and sunny out. So I've been able to run. Not that I'm like seeing people, but I've been able to go outside and stuff like that.
Nice. And how about you, Nick? You're back home or are you still in your
Back
apartment?
home, yeah.
No?
So I still got to move some things out of UBC later this weekend, but I've been at home for the past 3 weeks, and definitely a little bit of an adjustment coming back and living with the parents and with Spencer and all that. But yeah, it's been all right. Knock on wood. My parents came back from Vietnam pretty much like days before quarantine happened, and knock on wood, everyone's healthy. So yeah, it's been strange times as everyone's experiencing, but yeah, just got to get through it kind of.
I was wondering how would it have been for you and Spencer with your parents being in Vietnam when everything kind of blew up and they had to get home, and that must have been a bit stressful for you. Like Chris was mentioning with his mom being a frontline healthcare worker, like
Mm-hmm.
that must have been stressful for you with your parents being away and traveling with everything that was coming out rapid fire with news, right?
Definitely. I know like right before, because they left early March, maybe the 5th or 6th, I want to say. And before they left, I know my mom was really kind of torn with it. She's like, I don't know, Dean, like, I don't know if we should go. And they ended up deciding to go. But then within, I don't know, maybe 8 days, they decided to cut the trip short. It was cut the trip short by probably 12, 13 days. So a good chunk of time. But they decided to pull the plug and come home because it's one of those things like, would you rather get stuck in Vietnam for X amount of days when there's a bunch of stuff going on around the world, or would you rather just come home and play it safe?
I know it
So
must have
for
been.
Spencer and I, it wasn't that big of a stress because we kind of knew, we kind of, yeah, like thought that they would make the right call and be able to determine what's best for them over there. But we were cautious about it, I would say.
Good. Well, it must be nice once they were home too. Just that, okay, you're home, things are good, and away we go.
Exactly. Yeah.
So for you guys now, like Chris, you said you had just finished school, so you just graduated, correct?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. I came home and asked my parents, like, can I say that I'm graduated even though I don't have a certificate yet? But I did hand in my last assignment yesterday. So in my eyes, I'm graduated.
Okay. So I guess you're gonna have to wait though for any type of like graduation ceremony and things like that. All that stuff must be on hold.
Oh, totally. Yeah. I'd actually decided already that I I wasn't gonna go back for any ceremonies, um, purely just because I wanted to go back kind of later, maybe into the fall or the winter to see more of my swim friends because I didn't really make any friends in my degree. Not that I think I'm better than that. I was just kind of busy and I loved the people that I had in that circle. So to me, I didn't need to spend the money to fly myself and my parents out for a 3 hour ceremony where I walk across and get a piece of paper. Like I could just celebrate here with them, have a dinner. Like it meant just as much. It means just as much for me to kind of time with them and enjoy them here than to go back. Like it just, I didn't really care.
See, I get that. I was really similar with my high school graduation where I didn't really care about walking across the stage, but I wanted to go and have dinner with my folks and stuff like that. Like I remember going through that exact same thought process. Like the novel idea of just walking across stage and getting the diploma. I know it means a lot for a lot of people, but I think it sounds like for you and same for me. It's just it's an act, but getting it is really more the thing that means the most to you, right?
Yeah, it's exciting, but I don't think it's gonna add to like the fulfillment of getting finishing 4 years of school. So I decided that uh save some money, just enjoy my time here with my family here, and that's all good. And then now since this COVID thing is up, like I didn't really get closure with a lot of my close friends on the team because, like I said, I was quarantining. So I know once this kind of all dies down, I'd love to go back and kind of not celebrate, but just like visit, maybe go camping or do a little trip with some guys out there.
Well, get those finishing items that you didn't get, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely. So you don't have any exams or anything that you have to complete or finish up. You've done all your assignments.
Yeah, so I was lucky. Well, not lucky, depends how you view it. I decided I was able to take 4 classes this semester that all 4 of them didn't have a final. It was all
Okay.
project assignments and papers. So, I mean, now though it's funny because a lot of my friends who have 4 exams, it's all online. So, in my opinion, like it's kind of BS because you can just there's
Almost
ways around it.
backfired. Yeah.
Yeah, so as like if Nick has an exam, he kind of knows it's like, it's everything's open book, everything's open. You have the internet, so I mean, it's kind of funny because I'm not like a huge exam guy. I would prefer papers and assignments, except in this situation where now, I think I could fake myself through fake it through an exam. But yeah,
Well,
it's
that was what I was curious. I was curious about that because Nick, like you just finished your. It's different because you did some courses before you left China. So where you are you second year,
Yeah.
third year? You're kind of in that.
So I'm in between like the third and fourth year. So after this semester ends, I'll have 3 more semesters left, and then I'll be done. So hopefully I'll be graduating by December 2021. So
Nice. And what
still a
happens?
pretty good chunk of time.
Yeah, I was gonna say, what happens with your exams and stuff for you? Like, are you one of those people that has to do them online with your internet browsers and open book and a couple of laptops, doing it the honest way, I'm sure, right?
Exactly, all academic honesty here, but no, it's UBC's been pretty understanding and I would say almost relaxed about the exam policies and everything going forward. Like basically all my exams but one were optional, and they were going to reweight all your classwork that you've done previously before the whole COVID crisis to make that account for your entire grade. So for 2 of my classes, I decided to take that option and go with what I had before. But the other 2, I'm working on the finals. I did one on Monday, and then I've one next Monday as well.
Okay, good. Well, good luck on
So it's
those.
yeah, they should be.
so
With the internet thing, it's not the end of the world.
for a lot of big schools, Pat, they also contacted everybody, Nick and I included, that if you are struggling with school and your grades, you can elect for this semester only to take like a pass fail. So if you get a C, maybe in relation to being stressed out, not being able to go to school, you can just take a pass, and that C, nobody can see it. So it doesn't affect your GPA or it's not on your transcript.
I imagine there's a lot of that's a good thing because I imagine there's a lot of students that are going through stressful periods of time, or maybe they didn't have the best midterms in the world, and they were really hoping the finals or the end assignments would boost their mark. Like there is a lot of that stress that goes on, and I think anybody who hasn't been to university or hasn't gotten there yet doesn't realize how condensed it is in a short 3 month window, and then you've got exams, right?
Yeah.
So it is quite a
I think
bit going
another
on.
big concern, sorry to interrupt, another big
Yep.
concern for all the profs at UBC is the time zones.
Mm.
So like people are going home, right, and having to take exams at 2, 3 in the morning was a little tough to ask for some of the students. So I think having that option to take credit if you're in a situation like that is pretty remarkable that they've done that.
Yeah, I didn't even think about this until you just said that, but like international students, and there's people
Exactly.
literally all over the world, right?
Hmm.
Um, but I'm glad we kind of covered that stuff, but I really want to get into your swimming careers. So you guys have a unique, interesting story where your careers overlapped a lot. You were training partners for a good stretch of your developmental phase of your career here at Chena. And then you both went on to top tier universities and swim university programs. But the interesting thing, I think, is that you guys have both just finished your U Sports in February in Victoria, and that was your last meeting. There was a bit of, I'd almost call it a retirement party. I remember I got these pictures sent to me, and it was a group of all these Chena alumni and other university shirts, and I heard that there was a chant of Chena power that broke out at the pool. Can you confirm if this is a true story? Did that actually happen, guys?
That is a true story.
Yeah, and who was responsible for getting that going? Is there one person, or is it just a group of you guys got together and said, "Hey, let's do this"?
Lynn Duke was responsible for the picture, and then I think Jamie Demers was responsible for the Chena Power chant.
Now, Chris, can you confirm or deny that there might have been a Calgary teammate or two that was wanting to get in on that had never swam for Chena?
Yeah, Peter Brothers he was claiming an honorary Chena swimmer. So I think there's a picture with all of us, and there's a picture with Pete in the middle there, and he was pretty excited. But I mean, that's what the sport does too. There's guys that we've grown up with that, they swam with different caps on, but like that's family. So
I remember getting that photo and just I thought, how cool is that? And I looked through and I said, this is a heck of a group of guys that all grew up together. And you know what I immediately started going to? I started looking at everyone. It was like, oh, I remember whenever he was a pain in my butt and when he was a pain in my butt. And then I was like, oh, okay, house intervention here. And let's have a sit down discussion here.
Yeah.
So we had a lot of fun together, but I'm surprised that I have any hair left on my head, and if I do, that it's not all white or gray. And Chris, I think I'd give you about 60% of my stress at times, right?
yeah, at
As
least.
a team, we definitely put you through the ringer. That's for sure.
Oh, you guys definitely put me through the ringer. You know what? I started to reflect back though, guys, and I think there's moments where I somewhat did it to myself. I don't think that you guys could get me as much as you did with the way I am now. I'm a more calm and chill.
But I think
Yeah,
part of that reason is because of us.
Yeah,
for
well,
sure.
I'll never forget. So I used to go away with you guys a lot, and I think it was 2014, no, maybe 2013 or 2015. We were in Florida. It was the first time that Leanne, my wife, came and was team manager. And I'll never forget what she said to me. She said, I used to think that you were so impatient. And then I've watched you with these guys, and you are maybe the most patient person I've ever seen in my life. So,
I remember
there
that.
you go. You don't remember that at all. No, no, never. So guys, let's take a bit of a walk down memory lane. Let's go through the bit of the swimming journey because I think it's a really unique and interesting story. So just some statistics for you guys that I think is always cool. That these are club records that you guys still hold with Chena Swim Club. So Chris, you still have 3 senior club records, short course. Nic, you've got 6 individual club records, and then Chris, you have 3 relay. Nic, you're part of 9 relay club records. And if I'm not mistaken, Nic, you're still a part of the 200 medley provincial record relay team that we did in 2014. So I think that's kind of cool that you guys are a big part of a record board that on that group, we had a unique group of guys coming through, but we all had different starts. Chris, you, I think, are the longest serving Chena member that I've ever met, if I'm not
Yeah,
mistaken, because you started pretty young. Like you were a Chena guy. You started, I think, at 9 or 8 years old in like 05, 06. Like so I think your swimming career has been at least 15 years now.
yeah, at least. According to my parents, because I don't really remember, but my sister actually started first. I have a twin sister for everybody who doesn't know. She started swimming, and then but we had used to, obviously we're twins. We did a lot of stuff together, and so she had said that according to my parents, it's probably just some cutesy story, but that she missed me in those kind of couple practices a week that she got to do. So I think I joined um, kind of in January, and she might have started in September.
Okay, yeah.
I was 7 years old. So I mean,
Yeah.
I guess I would have turned 8 in February, but yeah, it's a long time. And then I was back at this past Christmas swimming with you guys with you again, and kind of I watched you say in James's interview, but I was training with not so little girls that I used to coach, so it's just wild.
Yeah, because you were the other one that worked with like Cosette and some of those young swimmers, right?
Yeah, then that was like probably one of the most gratifying like moments that I've had through the sport was just like seeing a few of these and not even people in your group yet, but seeing photos that you've posted of, kids that I remember when they were 9 and 10 years old and now they're, 16 and they're still repping Chena. It's really, really cool.
Well, it is really neat because you started so young and you were part of the club for such a long period of time. And to see some of the kids that you've coached, some of the kids you worked with, and I know some of the boys coming up right now, like, oh my God, I'm starting to like, we had a couple of guys break club records at 12 years old. And then we had some boys who broke some 13, 14 relay records. And they start looking at the names of the guys on those boards and like, wow, those guys are like top end senior guys. So it's really neat to see that next generation coming through. Now, Chris, did you ever do any summer swimming, or were you just straight into Chena?
No, I think I was one of the only boys that in our famous group that started Space Machina. I lived super close to one of our pools, as you guys know, so it was really easy for me to get to Ron Andrews and train when I was younger. And I can remember, I probably had 10 different Chena coaches like of my group or whatever group I was in. I can remember all of them, and it's been a crazy ride. I never ever would have guessed. Neither I've spoken to my parents about it. Like we never would have guessed it. It would have gotten me this far. And the amount of the experience that I have through it. But no summer for me. That's Nick over there and Rob.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
a lot of them came through that. So I wanted to ask you, Nick. So you started a little bit differently. So Chris started super young, 7, 8 years old with Chena. I think you came over to Chena at 13, 12, 13 years old.
Yeah, I think it was the
Was when you made the
summer.
switch.
Exactly. Yeah. So we started, both my brother and I, we started summer club around 6, 7, maybe. And we are just doing that in the summer, really enjoying it. And then there was a certain time when I got to provincials and I remember it vividly. And my dad was asking me, so what do you want to do? You're either going to choose swimming or you're going to choose something else, but you got to choose one thing and you got to pursue it. And I remember that summer we were in, I don't know, it might have been trail or somewhere for provincials. And I remember telling my dad, I was like, all right, I want to go all in with swimming. I want to pursue that. And then that was that summer that, and I think towards the end of August that we met on the back deck. And then from there, it was just kind of off to the races.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting how I met both of you guys because I know that you had done a lot of summer swimming, and then I was asked if I was able to come and have a chat, and it was on your back deck, and then your mom and dad, and then you and Spencer were there, and we were just talking swimming. And your dad had swam at a pretty high level as well, and I remember sitting there and chatting, and anybody who hasn't met your dad, he kind of wants to meet you, talk to you, and basically rate you on his BS tracker, if you will.
Yeah.
And I remember we were just chatting away and it was fun. And then abruptly, all of a sudden, he's like, "All right, I've heard enough. You can go now. We're good to go." Like he was like, "I'm good," and that was it. And I knew that I had the conversation pretty well because I remember afterwards we knew that you wanted to swim, but Spencer's like, "Yeah, I want to do this too." And I think that only lasted a few weeks.
Not even,
And
I
then he
think
really
maybe a few hours with Spencer, who knows?
it was exciting until we weren't on the back deck anymore. I think for Spencer, he just wasn't as into it.
For
Um,
sure.
so so interesting, kind of, and this is where some of the parallels start. So Nick came over at that point. I think you came over during your grade 8 season. Chris, you started in like your grade 1 season. Um, but the neat thing is, so I drove across the country and I arrived in Vancouver with my wife on like the Friday of the Labor Day long weekend. And then in the Sunday morning, I was at Harry Jerome for the Chena registration meet and greet. So I think that's when I met you for the first time, Chris, in my first season. And then at the end of that first season is when I had that meeting with you and your family, Nick, on your back deck. So it would have been the summer of 2011. Now, the
Mhm.
first year, Chris, you swam with Daryl, right? And then at the end of the year, that's when you made the switch and you came into my group with me. And then that second year I was there was your first year, Nick, 2011, 2012. You swam that first season with Daryl as well. And then the
Yeah.
next year you jumped in the group, and then you guys were together as training mates for that whole quad from 2012 to 2016. Um, the thing that I find interesting about that is that you guys didn't really know each other before you swam together, right?
No, no,
Not really.
because of his summer swimming, and we went to different schools, even though like Nick and I live so close to each other actually. And funny enough, you didn't include it in your intro, but we drove to practice morning and night for 4 years, or not, yeah, for 4 years together when we didn't have our licenses, and then once we both got licenses. So more than just in the pool and dry and all our dry lands and stuff like that, we spent a lot of time in the car laughing and fighting, and yeah, it was some good times. But we didn't know each other, and it's, I mean, now Nick is someone that we can sometimes go and talk for a couple of months, and then we'll just FaceTime, and it's perfect. Or we'll talk, every day for a little bit. Like it's become, one of my best friends that I don't need to talk to every day to know that like he's there. So, and same, I'm pretty sure for Nick. So
yeah, for sure.
Well, and that's the neat thing, and that's why I wanted to talk to you guys together, because I think you guys, and this kind of illustrates what swimming is. You guys are great swimmers. You guys have had a lot of success in the pool. We talked about club records. We can talk about all the success, but the fact that you guys developed these friendships and these bonds, and what you described, Chris, I think that was the uniqueness about the whole group. There was this group of guys, this group of you guys, that you guys became more like family than friends, right? It's these friendships that kind of grew into these bonds, and I find it interesting to see that group. And I think that's, I know I spoke with James about this. I think I spoke with Rob about this, but you guys didn't have, like, you guys came through, and Chris, there was no men's program. There was no senior guys really that paved the way. You guys were kind of part of this core group of guys that went on and did this together and went through a lot of firsts together. And you guys had individual success. I think you guys came in and you swam really well. And if I can say this, like, the first season, whenever I was at Chena, I remember watching you swim, Chris, in that first year, 10, 11. And you were a good swimmer, and things were okay. But I would say after like provincials in March, I didn't think that you were like on that track to move into the top group. But then by the end of the year, you had gone and put yourself at the absolute top of the list. And I think did you make junior nationals that year
yeah,
and come to Montreal?
I think so. And I had a really
Yeah.
good. I had a really good meet out in Park John Drapeau.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
and that was like in that time frame, and I always use this story when I talk to swimmers. You went from March, where you were maybe middle of the pack as far as kids that I thought were ready to make the jump, and by the time we got to July, you were so far ahead of the rest of the group that you had been swimming with, and you were not at the top of the list, ready to make that jump into the performance group. And I think that was the interesting thing that I saw out of you. And people always say, like, I get asked, like, how do I assess or look for talent swimmers? And it's your fire and your passion, your drive of what you wanted to do. And then you just kind of really brought a lot of energy and humor to everything you did as well, which made it fun. But I always thought that was the unique thing. And that's when I saw at that point in time that this guy's going to go on and do some cool things in the water, because he's driven to do it. Is that a fair assessment, I guess, of kind of my memory of that first year?
Yeah, I think so, and I think Nick can attest to this too. That like I loved swimming for Daryl. Like Daryl Rudolph was a great guy. Hope he's doing well. And he, his approach to coaching was really interesting, and I think you really enjoyed working with him as well, Pat. And I know Nick like, yeah, I know Nick likes swimming for him, and it was, I think he, in a sense, like he gave me confidence in a kind of like a really interesting way that I don't even think I realized. It's just kind of like he was so casual with things, and he had a really good relationship with my sister too. And but it's funny though. I don't really remember that summer as well when I think. But then there's certain. I know you're probably gonna get to it, but like I remember like some of Nick's races in the summer, or like some of James's races. It's weird like how my memory of big meets with Chena has faded to specific moments, and I can't really say that I remember that summer, but I know I was super super excited to move up and swim with you, even though I loved Daryl. And then he ended up leaving, I think, after next year, anyways. So
Yeah, he left. So he did that first year with you, and like I absolutely loved working with Daryl. I did not realize when I met him how close we'd become and how great of a guy he was. So I was really fortunate to get to work with him. And I think both you guys were lucky. I think you were lucky, Chris, that you had that year with him. And I don't know if who you swam with the year before I arrived, but I know that first year I was here with him, was a really good connection?
I think I did 2.5 years with Daryl actually, because he came for Kelly K's mat leave, so he finished like a third of a season for Kelly, and then I think I swam a year with him before you came, and then a year when you came, and then I moved up.
Right. And then Nick, same thing for you, like as a young kid coming up, and then your first winter club or full season club coach was Daryl, who, I mean, you clicked right away with him and swam well with him that first year right out of the gate, right?
Yeah, right out of the gate, I remember it being a pretty steep increase from what I was used to with summer, but I remember talking with Daryl frequently just about trying to manage everything and make sure that I can digest all the work that he was putting in front of us, and we had a really good connection right off the bat.
Yeah, it was good. And then it set up so well as you guys came through. And so you came to me the next year, and it was the 12-13 year. And I know in the yeah,
Can I
sorry.
cut you off? Pat, do you remember that swim that Nick did? That's when I like knew Nick was gonna be good. Is when and how he like him and kind of Rob Hill as well, like love pressure. Do you remember when we were shooting for that banner and Nick needed to come like top 3 or something in the 2 fly? The last it was like the last race potentials.
And there's 2 back that night too or something. I don't know.
I forget what it was, and it was just like that's when I just knew Nick like had it. I don't know if you remember that, but that was like such a cool. And he was like a year younger than me, so we weren't swimming in the same age category, and it was like someone pulled him aside, was like, "Hey Nick, like not to scare you, but like if we want this banner, like you gotta do well here." And then he like added, you like I think you might have won or you were top 3. It was crazy.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah,
that was a big night in Victoria for sure.
That was a big one. So that was that first year. I think you were in the group with us, right, Nick? And so you did the first year 11-12, and then 12-13, and that 12-13 year was kind of the start where things started to kind of we knew something big was going to happen, and we were getting to that point. And that was kind of cool because we did go to that provincial championships, and I remember short course provincials 2013 was the year we won. And Nick, you were still 15 at the time, so I think you were racing 14, 15. And there was 2 people that like we had the whole team. Everyone had we needed those 8 place points. We needed every point, but you had a big meet. I think you had 3 gold, a silver, and 2 bronze, among other final swims. But like that was a big moment between you and I think the other one was Emily Good when the 2 of you guys stepped up and were workhorses. You swam a ton of races. You were in the right age groups and was a big part of winning that banner, which was cool because I'll never forget. It was always the best. I love the compliments we got after we won provincial championships. I remember people coming out to me and like, "Hey, my God, you guys won provincial championships. That's really great. What's wrong with swimming in BC?" I was like, I think that's a backhanded compliment a little bit. No, we did the math and we had the right age groups and the right teams and the right scoring system that we were able to do. And I think that was an exciting, fun weekend. Just getting everyone excited behind doing something as a team. So that was a lot of fun. I think that was the start of something. I think people started to really believe what they could do and where they could go with it all. And it all progressed quite nicely from there. I think that summer then we had a bunch of people on Canada Games, and then we had that big trip in the summer of 2013. We went back to Montreal, and that's when we had the seniors beforehand, and we did the relay, and James made junior worlds, and then we broke the medley relay record, but Nico was doing the relay only swim. And I remember you guys were there, it was like, Nico, you can do this. And Nico's like, I'm freaking out right now. Right. And just kind of going. And I think that was a bit of the breakthrough moment for a lot of swimmers as we go through these things. And I'm pretty sure, Nick, that summer's where you made your senior cut at 15. You tied for a silver medal in the 200 fly, and you made your senior cut at Parc Jean de la Peau, right?
Yeah, that was both Chris and I made it that meet actually, because I remember watching his 1500 and he absolutely crushed it, got under the standard. And I remember behind the blocks of the 2 fly, I was like, oh gosh, now I really got to step up. And if Chris is going to do it, I'm doing it with him. So I remember that vividly.
That's an awesome. Chris, do you remember what you said to me after that 1500 freestyle?
No, man.
You said it to kind of me and all of us, but you don't remember?
No,
I gotta tell you that. So Chris is swimming the mile, and he's having a great swim.
I remember
but at that,
swim. Remember the swim.
you remember the swim?
Yeah.
And I don't know if people remember what juniors was like back then, but like you might be swimming the mile at 9 o'clock and it's dark and you're outside and all that stuff. But we were swimming the mile and you were having a great swim and we were really engaged. And people who know me now would be like, wait a sec, Patrick was cheering. Yeah, we were cheering and waving and getting really excited. And you came out of the water from that race, and I'll never forget what you said. He's like, "Oh my God!" He's like, "I really just thought you guys were being nice. I didn't actually think I was going that fast."
Yeah, yeah.
Because you were shocked that you made your trials cut because you're like, I just thought you guys were trying to be nice and cheer for me.
That's so funny. No, I totally remember saying that, and because that's like the best and the worst part about the mile is it's so long, and um, usually, I mean, now that I had swam it so much, you kind of know where you are. About halfway through, you know, kind of the direction the race is trending, but at the same time, because like teammates want to help you out, and it's such a grueling race, is and it's funny, Rob always knows this because Rob doesn't cheer for me in the mile because he knows that, like, 3/4 of the time I don't. It's nice to see, but it's almost distracting, and especially when the race is trending downwards and people are still, cheering for you and whistling, and it's just like, a second every 50 turns out to be a lot, and then in the end, like, I don't know, you can be 20 seconds off your best time, and people cheer for you the whole time, and it just I don't know. It's just an interesting race, but I totally remember that, and that was a really cool moment, and especially like talking to Nick after, and I knew he was gonna get it. Like I knew he just like that competitive guy, and there was no way that because of a lot of our teammates were going to Canada games after, there was no way that Nick and I like weren't gonna get it that meet.
No, it was kind of neat because once we finished that 2013 season, it almost felt like, okay, we've got everybody qualified now, and that's when we had that group of guys, and it really kind of altered the course of what we were going to do as a group because then there became this. We have this senior group, and we're going to go to senior meets. So you start thinking the next year, right? So 13, 14, it was an interesting year for a lot of reasons. In that season, we ended up going to I think we did our Pro Series meet in Austin for the first time. And for some reason you guys all grew your hair out really long. It was a ragtag bunch of guys, and I know that Vinny's gonna throw a picture of that into this video, but
Yeah.
it was quite the group that we went down to Austin with, and that was kind of a cool experience in going through all that. And then we went to trials, and then from the trials meet, that's when we had Tim, Rob, and James all made junior pan packs and all that stuff. But it kind of set up for what I think was an interesting summer because we were this young group. I was a younger coach. You guys were younger swimmers, and we're getting ready for the summer. And we said, okay, let's look at our options. And I remember that summer of 2014. So we had Tim, Rob, and James getting ready for junior pan packs. We had Nico, who was going to Columbia Nationals to try and qualify for the South American Games. And then I had you two guys that I wanted to go over to England or Wales or wherever it was. You went with Ben Baston. You were going to the British Junior Nationals or Age Nationals or whatever it's called. So we were all getting ready for something. But that also meant that we were going to go to a meet in work, but you guys were young, and young guys going to the Saskatoon Nationals in 2014.
Yeah.
And I'm not, there's no way to guarantee this fact, guys, but I'm pretty sure we had the most last place finishes of any team in the history of senior nationals.
That was legendary.
It was,
yeah, statistically speaking, that's probably by far Chena's worst meet on the senior side of things for sure.
yeah.
But in terms of just like, emotional bond, that was like such a sick meet.
Well, that was, and that was an interesting time for him because, I mean, yes, things have changed, and we can get into that whole story time. But that was whenever we were told right before that meet that we couldn't have kids, right? So, I know I was in a downtime, and you guys were going through stuff, and it just I think as a group there was the 6 athletes and I, and then we were also had Nick Decker with us, and poor Nick was totally prepped and swimming great.
Wow, I forgot
but he gave us
Decker was with us.
yeah, and poor guy was like, you guys are a bit of a disaster right now, but he gave us a reason to have to go back to finals every night, so that was good. But that was
none of us.
no, it was weird because if you look at just the swimming, you think, oh my God, that was maybe the worst meet we've ever had as a group. But I think we came out of that, and that was a unifying experience in beautiful Saskatoon in 2014. Because then we turned around, and I think the guys swam well at Junior Pan Pac, Nico swam well in Columbia, you guys swam well in Britain. And then it kind of led to some good things moving forward. Now, as we went forward, though, guys, and I want to ask you, like, you guys kind of came up and you were driven and you got your senior cuts and we had all these things going on. But all of a sudden it went from that point. I think a lot of guys go through this, and for males, it typically happens somewhere between 16 and 20. But you guys both went through struggles, and they paralleled around the same time where your confidence wasn't so high. So if you think back to trials in 2015 or Olympic trials 2016 and going through that time frame, you guys both struggled with confidence a lot of the times, but when you got to the big environment. And I don't know if there's one of you guys that would be comfortable going first, just sharing what it felt like and why you felt like you struggled from a confidence perspective, and depending on how much I'm allowed to share, but you maybe didn't see yourselves as elite swimmers, if I can say it that way, even
For
though you
sure.
were trending in that direction. So
Yeah.
anybody
I
anybody
mean,
want to take
I
that
think,
one?
yeah, I can start this. I think for myself, at least, when it comes to like AAAs, BC swimming, everything local, you kind of feel good about your results and what you're doing. You kind of feel like a big fish in a small pond. And it's one of those things where you're fine and comfortable getting up racing with whatever meet, and there's not really that much pressure because it's all local and kind of just feels easy almost. But as soon as I personally got to taper time, it was always like, okay, I gotta hit these marks, I gotta hit these times, I have to perform this well here so I can perform this well later on. And I always got caught up in everything, like just in my head. And as soon as I remember when we got to 2015 trials at the Pan Am pool, it was just a mess, like a complete mess. I felt like a small fish in a absolutely massive pond, and just cracked under the pressure. I mean, I was telling myself I had to be here, and if I wasn't at this mark, then I would have been, I don't know, like not, I wouldn't have been a good swimmer, and all the work I would have done before that was just a write-off, which obviously is not the case, but in your young mind, you kind of tend to go to extremes. And I think that was the extreme that I went to, is, yeah, almost just telling myself that all the work that I put in before, if I didn't hit the results that I wanted to hit, would have been a waste of time, and everything would have been a waste of time. So that's kind of where I think I didn't look at myself as that much of an elite athlete after that meet for at least a couple of years, because I didn't hit the results I wanted to hit. So I was just kind of not giving up, but yeah, like I think my confidence just deteriorated a lot after that.
Did you feel like you kind of treated it as like pass fail? I'm either going to be great or I failed.
For
Like there's
sure.
no gray area. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, it's one of those things like we talked about earlier with the pass fail. It's like, yeah, there, you get the credit, you complete it. Like there's no, for me, there was no like letter grade on it. Like, oh, that was okay. It was always one extreme or the other. It's either you're great or you're not great.
And Chris, I was going to ask you like similar feelings at different times. Like it might have been different meets and different things like that. But trials 2015, I would say that was a bit of a tough one for you as well as far as confidence goes, right?
Yeah, I mean, confidence with swimming is a crazy beast because, at least for myself, I know that when I was super relaxed and kind of excited and happy and with myself and my training, that would like transpire to great meets. But then I know like I was kind of scared of like complacency, and I found myself in, certain aspects of my career, um, maybe settling too much and not pushing, and then that would transpire to race day with just, as you said earlier, like being scared to fail. And I mean, you're not going to go best time every single race, but especially swimming longer things, adding, if you had 10 seconds in a 400, like that looks really, really rough, and almost being scared to, like you said, being scared, being anxious to fail made it way harder than it needed to be on myself. Um, and then in terms of like the whole, elite athlete status is, um, I felt as though I had never been, super top of the pack in my age group or bottom. I was kind of in the middle, and then sometimes, I'd trend towards the top or towards the bottom. and it was hard to kind of understand that like that's okay and I can work in that range and try and build instead of like, oh well, if I don't make finals, this is a failure. But if I'm in finals and I'm eighth, like that's not good either. So I don't know, it's an interesting sport in terms of confidence, but I know I've learned, Nick and I both have learned like so much from it. I
I
don't
think a
know,
lot of
And
what we learn too is transferable to other aspects of our life. I know personally, like some of the things I've learned in terms of confidence and how you kind of hold yourself, of like what I've learned from swimming is just kind of carried on through other aspects of my life. And looking back now, it's crazy to kind of think that that can happen, because in the moment you just think, oh, it's swimming, it's not a big deal.
well, it's funny because a lot of people, as a coach, right, you ride the emotions with your athletes, right? So I know that I've talked to quite a few of my past swimmers, current swimmers, and having worked with you guys, I remember your stories and I remember them vividly because like I would come back from a major swim meet and my wife would be like, "You just look so wrecked and drained. Like, how hard was it?" I said, "It's just the emotional roller coaster, right? If you're having a stressed out, emotional downtime, I'm going through that with my athletes, and I guess that's part of my coaching style." And the reason why I bring up the positive and negatives because I've been on both ends of the spectrum with you guys. I know 2015 trials was really stressful on the whole group. Everyone was racing scared except for James, and James had that big meet and swam great. But I also know from hearing from individual conversations is that James kind of gave you guys confidence coming out of the trials because you're like, well, I train with the guy, I do the same work as him. And if you fast forward to the summer of 2015, James went to Pan Am Games, and then we were all at juniors in Quebec City, and that Chris was like one of the greatest kind of summers you've had, at least with me as your coach, where you were happy, you were confident, you were ripping it up, you were swimming fast. Like everything was just, it looked so easy. And you really looked like you were enjoying yourself. And that was such a fun summer for you because you did juniors and then you did seniors right afterwards and you swam great coming out of trials that year where you were not as confident. I'm just wondering, like, do you remember that summer and how you felt just, and I think you said, one of the things you said to me, sorry, I'm asking questions, I'm talking a lot, but you said to me is it was just, I'm having so much fun being here with my friends and with my teammates and I'm just not even thinking about the results. I'm just getting up and racing.
yeah, for me, that's exactly what I needed. Throughout my career, looking back, like all the best meets is I was just truly enjoying the process and not thinking too much about the results or even like the effort that I had to put in. You know, a lot of times before a 1500, I actually every single time before a 1500, I get like I, Peter and I call it like the pre-mile butterflies because it's just such an intimidating race. But to just kind of, and I know that was my last juniors, and I hadn't done it um, the year before, so I was just able to like kind of forget about everything and tell myself that this really doesn't matter. And I guess having the meet after, that was like the true goal, so that allowed me to really just not care. And I'm not, this just works for me, and I know some people it works for as well, and then other people need to be like super invested and super intense to get themselves going. But that year we just had such a good group, and I was just super excited to be there and finish my last juniors with like a good group of guys, and having James there, um, who was, swimming at all these senior meets, but he was still there having fun, and Nick, guys who were maybe didn't have to be there but were there. It just was like super, yeah, I don't know, it's just like a wholesome time there. And I don't really remember the specific races or the times, but I just know that I really enjoyed like racing with in front of you guys and with you guys and watching you guys, and that's transpired to other meets that I've had really good experiences at. But when I get too into it, almost it almost hinders me. It's weird.
I know that was a fun juniors because you had the individual success, like you swim great, and there was the two of you with James and Tim. I think the four of you guys were like cleaning up on the relays, and it was just it's a lot
Yeah.
of fun when you're getting up and you just I think at that point you guys got to a juniors where you're like, all right, I am a big fish in a small pond now, and it was kind of like you're able to relax and get out of your own way a little bit, right? And it's kind of interesting because Nick, you had that experience. And I think you always I think when you went through that 16, 17, 18, 19, and those ages, you had such a standard you wanted for yourself that you constantly were hard on yourself when you
Yeah,
weren't
very much
hitting
so.
your preset standard. And then it kind of fast forwards a year later. So we had, that was your last juniors in 2015, Chris, and then Nick, you had your last juniors the following year, and we did Olympic trials, and I think we swam all right Olympic trials, but once again it was just not quite able to relax and swim the way we wanted. But then we had a team goal in
Yeah,
the summer to go to Summer Nats. But before we did Summer Nats with the men's team, where we had 8 guys, and it was a really good group of guys, and we're going head to head with UBC. Nick, you went through a lot that summer because we started in Calgary. You did your last juniors,
yeah,
and then you went to seniors, and you were just a lot of emotions that you went through from your races. It was a bit up and down, and
for sure.
I think, and then I remember you and I having a bit of a moment on
Oh,
pool deck at Edmonton.
yeah,
Um,
before the 400 free, I will not forget that one.
yeah, and if I can tell my version of the story a little bit, you were
Go ahead, yeah.
you were battling your emotions, and we had a really good heart-to-heart talk in Calgary. And I was there, and I was more supportive. But then in Edmonton, at one point, I remember you kind of had a bit of attitude going, and you're a bit unhappy. And when you're unhappy,
For
you
sure.
have the ability to be a bit unpleasant. Um, and I remember sitting, and I had Mark McGran on one side, and I had Rob Pettit on the other side, and we had talked before you were going for your race, and I was like, nope, and I slammed the table, and I stood up, and I walked up, and for anybody who doesn't know, Nick's a pretty tall guy, and I'm not exactly the tallest fellow. I have an unhappy baby right now, if you can hear her crying. um, but I remember grabbing you by the shoulder, and I whispered in your ear, and I was like, I won't say what I said, but
Yeah.
I kind of gave a comment, and you went up, and you swam the 400 free, and it was a thing of beauty. It was a brilliant swim. Um, but I know that was a screw you swim to me.
A little
And the
bit.
first thing you came back and you're like, don't ever say that to me again. And I just cracked a joke. But it was interesting because that was how you work. Sometimes you needed the support, but then sometimes like that whole moment, I don't know if I've told you this or not since then, but Nick, I literally did what I thought I had to do to get you to swim fast. And I really wasn't even mad at you.
Yeah,
I
no,
was like,
for sure. I know I've always been that type of person that occasionally gets, I don't know, maybe, I don't know if this is the right term for it, but gets a little complacent and kind of comfortable with, I don't know, it's hard to describe it, but like comfortable with kind of even just complaining, I guess. And I knew you knew in that moment that the only thing that would get me out of it is tough love, and that's exactly what it was.
yeah, I figured if you're going to be pissed off at something, might as well be pissed off with me. And
Yeah.
then you got up and you swam really well. I'll never forget because after, I don't know if I've ever told you this, but after I said that to you, I think it was Nico and James were sitting on the bleachers. And the moment you walked away, they both looked at me and they said, thank you. He needed that. And they had a smile on their face. So it was kind of fun. Um,
Yeah.
no, we went through a lot, guys, and I think at that point that was the. I think Chris, you were battling emotions that summer because that was going to be your last race, and then you were off to Calgary the next year, and dealing with that. And it was kind of the end of a bit of an era. And Nick, I know you were struggling because you were going to be losing teammates like Chris and whatnot. They were going to be going away. And then you fast forward in your university careers, which I want to get into, but I do want to. Just the last thing I want to touch on about our club career is that what happened for you, Nick, over the course of the next year and a half after that summer, because I think you broke through, the confidence started to come, but you had terrible luck. I think it was the 28 last season you had with me was cut short because
Mm.
you didn't swim well at nationals in 2018, and we couldn't figure out why because your prep was good, your training was good. And then you went to Westerns because your shoulder was flaring up with something that was weird. And then you went to Westerns. Anyway, you ended up going right on your best time 200 fly. You swam well. You made the podium at Westerns after a struggle at nationals. We then discovered you had mono. so
Exactly.
so we had the answer, but I remember kind of going nuts trying to figure out why didn't he swim well? That this doesn't make any sense to me because I always need to figure out the solution. Um, so then you kind of looked at it like, hey, you know what? I fixed all my insecurity issues or my psychological issues as far as getting up at big moments, and then I was sick. So
Yeah.
it was always a bit of bad luck with all of that. Um, but you did get up and swim extremely fast, given the fact that you had mono, which I thought was cool. But then you guys, and that's kind of how your career abruptly came to an end with Chena because you had to take the rest of the season off to heal up, and then you start off at UBC. So what I wanted to
Yeah.
kind of ask you guys is, you guys went through the process of swimming in a club system. You had a good group of guys. You had awesome coach, obviously, right? Like,
The best.
Yeah.
But we had a good thing. But you guys both went to top tier schools and had really good groups and good coaches and good programs to swim with. Nick, you've spent the last 2 seasons at UBC. Chris, you've just finished up 4 years in Calgary. Um, you both got the opportunity to swim with teammates that you had at Chena. A little bit less so, I guess. Raven was there this year with Nick, but Chris, you've been swimming with Rob, and then Ben Blackman came and joined us for a lot of summers, and Pete and all those guys. So I'm just curious if you guys can share a bit of what it was like going from club swimming into your university careers, what the university career was for you. What are some of the differences or contrasts from what you did here with Chena, and just some of the things that you took away from it, or some of the experiences that maybe surprised you. I don't know. Just it's a bit of an open-ended question. I just want you to share a bit your university experience. And Chris, since you started first, I'd like to kind of go with you because you've finished the full run of it. Yeah, just tell us a little bit about your experience and some of the differences.
Well, first of all, I just want to, like, as you guys both know, like, I loved, every day that I got to come to the pool with Chena, like, and swim with you guys. So leaving was, it was kind of a hard decision, but I knew I needed to take advantage of my ability in the pool to try and, like, coax me into going to school, because while I was in high school, it really wasn't for me. And I told myself, you're an athlete. Like, that's kind of how I wanted to identify myself. And I think that last year in 2016 with you, in a sense, just being an athlete and working part-time and training, like, as we were saying earlier, it was almost too much for me, because there was so much implied pressure for myself to perform that year, that it backfired. And I know I, broke my wrist, but, like, it was tough. And then going away to school, having a completely new environment was super, super fun my first year, and I swam great. And I think it was the ability to kind of turn off the expectation, because I was going to, like you said, a top tier school with top tier swimmers, and I was going with Rob, Peter, and Teddy. And, like, these are three guys that have had, like, insane junior success and senior success. And I was kind of their friend, but I wasn't anybody to the coaches or the people that were already there. And that was, like, exactly what I wanted to be. That was kind of that was what I felt my position was at Chena, because, James, Nick, Rob, these are some of my best friends, and they're pretty well known. And I was always, with them, but I wasn't the star. So that was kind of perfect. And then I went there and had just kind of flew under the radar. And then I had a great year. I think I went, like, 100% best times that season. Short course, and then and long course, because I went to trials, and I think I went some best times in the 4 and the 15, the 2, 4, and the 15. So, it was, to the switch of the environment, as much as I loved Chena, was super healthy for me. And then blink of an eye, three more years later, and then here I am, like, not going back. But I truly support kids taking advantage of athletics to get them into school. And not that I think grades define you, because I really didn't succeed in high school, but it was really interesting to watch, or now to look back at my development in the classroom, because my first year I did not care at all about school, because I had taken a full year off of it, but then getting back into it, and then, slowly progressing. And then now I've taken 4 years of classes, and to watch, just, like, my ability to learn, and my ability to be, like, teachable, and, problem solve and stuff like that. It's been, swimming has allowed me to kind of access a part of myself that I never knew existed, because when I was younger, I kind of, we were swimming 30 to 40 hours a week. Like, we were so busy. I was either sleeping or trying to, succeed in swimming related things. But then going to school, it allowed me to, 25 hours a week focus on swimming, and then, the rest of the time focus on having fun, or focus on doing well in the classroom. And then the older I got, it was the focus in the classroom kind of paralleled with swimming. And then this past season, it trumped it. And that was the first time in, a decade that I put school first. And that was, kind of really important for me to take that step and know that, there's life after swimming. And the most important thing for me is the relationships that I've made. through it, and this network that I now have, and I know you guys can totally relate to that, and then learning that I can succeed in the classroom. I can get A's, and I can hand in work that I'm proud of, because I've never done that before. But the last 2 years for sure, I've learned that about myself, and it's been pretty cool.
So would you say it gave you the ability to grow? And I have to say, you became your academic All-Canadian this year, right?
Last year and this year, the 2 years. I haven't like officially received it, but looking at my grades, yeah, two of my 4 years, so that's pretty cool.
And that's not something you thought you were going to achieve when you first left and went to school.
Oh hell, I didn't even know what it was.
Yeah.
But
that's
not at all.
So, and that's the thing that I really love about this, is that you stuck with it in the sport, and it just, a lot of the sport kind of generates or drives us to be the person we're going to become, right? And like, I look back, I met you when you were, I don't know, 13 years old, 12 years old, both you guys, and watching the men you've become. It's an interesting journey that you've been on. And I'm really proud of the things that you've accomplished and who you've become. So Nic, reflecting on your university, and I know you're still partway through it. You still have about a year and a half, 2 years to go. But the transition for you, because like Chris, you took a gap year. I think you took 2 years, but just kind of sticking back and taking courses and doing that sort of thing. So what would be your reflection on the changes, the differences, and the adjustment for you?
Yeah, so I did 2 years while still swimming at Chena, and I did 2 years of school at CapU, and that was not that big of an adjustment. It kind of still felt like the whole high school, and I was pretty familiar with it and comfortable. And then after that year I got mono, I decided that I needed to change, and I needed to kind of spread my wings a bit and grow up. So I decided that UBC would kind of fit that requirements that I set for myself the best, where I could still be away, not live at home, but kind of have that, not backup plan, but still come home when I wanted to. And it was a bit of a culture shock for that first year, for sure. It was new teammates, new school, new routines, having to cook for yourself, having to clean for yourself, like everything. It was kind of a culture shock in a way. But moving to the team, it was great, and I made some pretty close friends there and enjoyed a lot of the times that I had there. Yeah, and I think that first year I was still kind of in that mindset of swimming first. I have to perform. I have to just keep myself on this, I don't know, maybe even a pedestal, if you will, and live up to these expectations I set for myself. And I remember going to trials that year, and I didn't feel like myself racing like I did prior when I was at Chena. I remember having a conversation with you, and you just kind of reminded me of why I was doing it and why I enjoy it so much. And I think I finished off that trials a lot better than I started it. And then after trials, I spent that summer out at UBC, which was interesting for me because I was working out there at Shaughnessy Golf Course, and then swimming with the team as well. And it was just so different than what I was used to, I guess. And looking back now, it did help me grow as a person a lot. I think a large part of the person I am today is because I went through that by myself, and I went through those experiences and did all those things I needed to grow. And then coming into second year at UBC, I was kind of more familiar with it. I was part of the leadership for the team and trying to do my best to lead a group of rookie boys that were a little outrageous at times. And and then had some coaching changes halfway throughout the year, and was lucky enough to come into U Sports with that being our last meet, and lucky enough to race and actually finish off in a positive way that I'm proud to put behind me.
Well, and it's interesting. You guys both were fortunate in the sense that you did get your final U Sports. because, you know, obviously trials didn't happen and things like that, but actually getting that closure on your swimming. The other thing I was going to say, you guys have to probably admit that university swimming is fun, right? Like you get a group of guys, you get a group of girls. It's just a different type of swimming. I think there's a lot of value in it, but it's a condensed season. It's dual meets, it's team, it's scoring. It's basically the fun aspect of a really fun relay team every single swim meet. Does
Mm-hmm.
that sound about right?
Yeah, it's really intense and kind of high pace all the time.
Yeah.
I think also not just in relation to kind of like the swimming aspect, but finding, I know for myself, like finding an environment of people that were doing exactly what I was doing was huge, because I went from this team of, well, you know, 6 to 10 guys, depending on what year with you, and we're super driven and super focused. But then, you know, we all go home and then we all have our own circles, and these circles have people who are doing completely different things than me. And I know I struggled in high school trying to, you know, live 2 lives, and that I wanted to be in, you know, I wanted to be an elite athlete, but I also wanted to have fun and, you know, grow up with my friends, like just, you know, in the street and in North
Be a
Vancouver. So
kid,
like,
yeah.
I mean, Nick, it's a little different for you because you stayed kind of near home, but being an hour away on a flight, like having a group of, you know, 20 guys, 20 girls who are all in class and we'll all have, you know, 10 workouts a week really, really helped me to just, you know, it put me in a healthy environment, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Well, and to echo on that, I've always said the nice thing about going to university and being a part of a sport, whether it's swimming or another sport, it gives you that instant uni family where you have a bunch of people that can truly empathize and relate to what you're going through, right? Because although you're taking different programs, you come from different backgrounds, but it's like it's a melting pot of people that are going through similar situations, and you have those people to lean on and rely on, and then now you've got roommates and things like that that are it's all part of it, right? Um, so I want to ask you guys, I guess, one or two final questions just to kind of get your thoughts on a couple of things. Because you both reached out to me recently, and Chris, you did a workout and you kind of spoke to some of the Chena swimmers about your experience and what you went through. And I know that it really meant a lot to them. And Nick, you and I have talked about coming and doing a workout. Things haven't materialized because everything got shut down.
Exactly, yeah.
And doing all that. I guess I'd like to ask both of you guys if you could go back and talk to either a young swimmer coming up in a club like a Chena or any other club, or even just go back and talk to yourselves. Is there any piece of advice or anything you'd want to say, or some kind of recommendation to them as they go through the process that you guys are coming to the end of? What would you say to that? Like, I really like to think of what would you say to that young swimmer that's you, you know, 11, 12, 14, 15, 17, doesn't matter the age, but like, what would you go back and say to yourself? And Chris, I'll start with you if that's okay, because you've already done this really well with our swimmers that were there that morning, but I just would like to know what you think.
Hey, Pat. I've probably taken 20 takes because this is a lot harder to do when you can just rewatch them over and over again and decide that's not what you wanted to say. But on take 21, I think I'll just say that younger swimmers, a younger version of myself, should just truly appreciate the grind more, because when it's over, that's what you're going to miss. It's not necessarily the results that define you or your career in the pool, but it's truly those experiences that you shared with those around you that you're going to miss. You know, it's sharing, waking up at 5 a.m. with a group of like-minded athletes that want to improve together. And I would say just focus on, at the end of every week, having things to look back on that you know that you improved at, and also being able to look back at moments that make you smile within the week, because at the end of the day, we're doing this for fun, and you need to be able to enjoy it. It's not supposed to be easy, but it's not supposed to be hard either. It's supposed to be what you want. So just focus on yourself and focus on having fun, and truly appreciate those around you, because at the end of the day, you don't really know what you have until it's gone. And some of those people that helped me get to where I got, I wish I had thanked more, and I wish I had appreciated my moments with them more at the time, because it's a special sport and you create special bonds, and it'll be over as quickly as it started.
Nick, how do you feel? Like, anything that you want to say to young Nick or to a young swimmer coming up?
Yeah, I mean,
if I could give myself or a younger swimmer some advice, I think the number one thing I would try and tell them would be to enjoy the process more. I think enjoy the process and enjoy the privilege of swimming that we're all fortunate enough to experience. I mean, it's such a unique and immersive sport that not many people get the chance to partake in. I mean, it's, when you look back, it's a second family, it's a second home. We're so fortunate enough to do what we do, and I think looking back, it's not really the results of the times that I think of, it's the memories and the friendships and the events that I'll hold with me forever. I think if you can keep your head in your own lane, if you will, and make sure that you are doing the right things to be the best athlete that you can, but ground yourself and realize that it is a small part of our lives that we get to put our all into at this time. But it's one of those balance things. I think the best thing for someone going through the grind right now would be to enjoy it and always stay hungry for the results, but at the same time, don't let it cost more than it should. I think keeping a balanced life and keeping yourself in check when either you need breaks physically, you need breaks emotionally, and keeping good communication between yourself and your coaches and your teammates, and creating a team that will support you with whatever it may be, because at the end of the day, it is just swimming, but looking back, it's a heck of a lot more, and it gives you a lot more than you think it does during the time. I think a lot of us need to be more cognizant of the impact that swimming has on our lives, and I think it's one of those things that we just need to be very grateful for.
I just want to add on to what Nick said, is like, don't be unnecessarily hard on yourself about results. Like, our sport is so result driven, but how many, the moment that you touch the wall of every race is like, the margin is so small with how much work you've put in. Like, our sport is training and getting up and sharing these things. It's not really touching the wall, in my opinion. So, like, learn from your results if they're not what you want, but don't be hard on yourself, because it's not needed. Like, it doesn't actually do anything if you don't learn.
Beating yourself up over results is something I would advise against for younger swimmers, because it does more damage than it does benefit you as a swimmer.
Would you agree that it also holds you back from being your best self and your best performer the more you overanalyze it?
For sure.
And that's been a theme that the things that I've heard a lot talking to swimmers has been fascinating. Is one, trust the process, is one that comes up a lot. The other one is don't overanalyze or over focus on the outcome. And that's a lot of the themes that I've learned going through that experience, because you guys made me a better coach, because we talk a lot less about the results and more the things that we can control, right? And I know I've talked to a few swimmers, and one of our saying is, when you hit the wall, before you look at the scoreboard, be really proud of the effort you put forth and say, did I give everything I had? And then generally the board will usually match what you're feeling in that moment. So I think that's a big one for you guys. I want to thank you guys for doing this. Thank you for sharing. I do have one last question, just a quick one. You guys are both retired, but are you guys for sure retired for good, or is there a window of opportunity for a coach to come and hound you guys potentially and nudge you once this whole pandemic is over?
I need to give me a couple more weeks of graduated retired life before I really it's funny, like, I haven't touched the pool in a long time, but I'm curious to see if I miss it, like, the second I hit the water. Do you know what I mean? Like, I can't say that I like truly miss it yet, because it's been such an unusual experience to not have to swim every day that I'm enjoying that. But I'm curious once this whole COVID stuff slows down, and I'm gonna go for a swim, and I'm gonna see if I want to see, what it feels like. But in terms of trying to get back up to the level where I was, like I don't see myself truly pushing myself to get there. But I know that I do want to swim a couple times a week, and who knows what that builds to. But I do want to just stay in touch with the water because it's given me so much, and at this like besides our careers, like it's just such a good workout, and it, um, I haven't found something yet that I can think as much as the pool gives me. Like I can reflect on my day. I can, it's time with yourself that you don't really get anywhere else.
Absolutely. And so you're saying there's a chance, if nothing else, Masters legend.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Good. What about you, Nick? Same thing, same question.
Yeah, same question. I knew coming in that this was going to come up, and I think I was watching, I don't know, one of your interviews. I gave this question some thought because I was like, if Pat has me on and if we do have this conversation, I can guarantee this is going to come up. And similar to Chris, I haven't been in the water since U Sports end of February, but I think it's one of those things that's like I definitely want to stay in touch with the water, and I don't want to say no to anything because of the ending I had at Chena with you and the group and everything like that. And I feel like there are some stones left unturned, but like Chris said, this whole retirement thing is pretty enjoyable right now. So I can't say yes, I can't say no, but I definitely think there might be something still there.
Well, I'll tell you what, guys. The one thing that I want you to promise me is that if you ever get the thought in your head that maybe I want to kick some tires, but I want to keep it quiet or whatever it might be, just give me a call. If you ever think about it, give me a call first and let me see if I can convince you guys to get back in the water a little bit.
For sure.
All right.
Good. Well, guys, I really appreciate taking the time to sit down and share your story and do this together. I think it's a uniqueness, and you guys have a bond that'll last forever. And I think a lot of people don't realize that what we get out of this sport, because although there were times with both you guys that I wanted to do the old Homer Simpson and just kind of strangle you guys, we have become quite close, and I am really proud of the men that you've grown into being, and I'm really proud of the fact that we still have a relationship that's strong, that you guys have both held my daughter, and you guys are going to be able to see her as she grows up. And I know we're going to stay in touch and stay in contact. And I just really appreciate that we've had this journey together. So yeah, thank you so much. And it'll be fun having you guys tell stories to her someday about the shenanigans that we went through. But yeah, guys, just thank you so much for doing this. Like I said, and be safe, be well. And once this whole like lockdown isolation stuff is done, because it's ironic, we're all within a 5-minute drive of each other, and yet we can't see each other.
See each other. Yeah, exactly.
Let's get together, even if we get the whole gang together and go for lunch or go for a breakfast or something like that. Let's all catch up and do this in person
for sure
at some point really soon once we're allowed to. Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, you guys take care. You be well. Please say hi to your families for me. And we'll talk to you guys again soon. Okay.
All right. Thanks, Pat.
Bye, guys.